Hello and welcome to Sportuccino. It is our Friday football show. We're going to preview a massive weekend of football, including El Clasico, FA Cup semi-finals and the English Premier League. All of that to come on today's programme, and I'll be joined by the football writer Harry De Cosemo on the programme. Plus, we're going to reflect on the Champions League draw and the Europa League draw. And we want you to get involved as well. This is your program. This is your show. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, and on Periscope. And I want to get your opinions on the Champions League draw. Who do you think is going to win the whole competition? Now we know who the final four is and who they are facing. Let us know. Hashtag Sportuccino. We want you to get involved in our live program. We are live every single weekday, 3 p.m. British Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. It's so good that you are here joining us. Please get involved in the conversation. All right, let's get the show started. Let's get the show on the road with our daily football headlines. Holders Real Madrid will face neighbours Atletico Madrid in the semi-finals of the Champions League, while Monaco have drawn Juventus. In the Europa League, Manchester United will take on Celta Vigo, while Ajax have been drawn against Lyon. A market trader has been charged with the suspected bombing of the Borussia Dortmund bus. And the former England defender Ugo Ehiogu has died at the age of 44 following a cardiac arrest. Yes, those are the headlines today. Very sad news about Ugo Ehiogu dying at the age of 44 due to a cardiac arrest. The former Aston Villa and Middlesbrough defender. Our thoughts obviously go out to his family and to all of his friends. Really, really bad news. So sorry to hear about that. If you've got anything you want to say about Ugo Ehiogu, if you've got any tributes or any favourite memories during his career, let us know in the comments section and we can all fondly think of the former England defender. All right, we're going to be talking about the Champions League in just a moment. Before we do that, I want to say about Hootsuite. Hootsuite is a scheduling tool that we use to help promote Sportuccino, to make sure we keep you up to date with everything that is going on with our program. Of course, we have different types of shows. Today is our Friday football show. We also have wrestling programs, and also on the network, we have the best in the world with Richard Parr. I've got my name wrong. There we go. It's all at sportuccino.com. Go and check it out, but we do use Hootsuite to schedule our tweets. It saves us time. I've got a link to it on this Facebook page, on the YouTube page, and of course at sportuccino.com. And if you end up using their service, please click their link on our pages because that will help support our program. I'd really appreciate it if you could do that. So we heard in the headlines, the Champions League draw has been made. Let's have a little closer look at it now. Yeah, Real Madrid will face Atletico Madrid and Monaco face Juventus. Of course, that Real Madrid-Atletico Madrid is a rematch of last year's final, which Real won on penalties. Cristiano Ronaldo scoring that winning PK, as the Americans would call it. And of course, winning that Champions League. What a great year it was for him, of course, when he won the Euros as well. Monaco, remember, they haven't reached the final since, it must have been 2004 when Jose Mourinho's Porto won the competition. They faced the Juventus side, which were very ruthless, kept out Barcelona for 2 games, in fact. Made sure it was 0-0 this week, and of course beat them 3-0 the week before. Dybala looking absolutely fantastic. So that's Real Madrid against Monaco. Real Madrid against Atletico Madrid and Monaco against Juventus. What do you make of that draw? Are you happy with how that has gone, or did you want to see another Real Atletico final? Love to get your thoughts on that. And of course, we are talking about that on our Twitter page at Sportuccino. We've got a poll about it, and we want to know who you think will win the Champions League. Will it be Atletico Madrid? Will it be Juventus? Will it be Monaco? or will it be the reigning defending champions, the record time holders, the 11-time champions, Real Madrid? Of course, Real knocking out Bayern Munich in pretty controversial circumstances this week. What did you make of that game? Love to get your thoughts on that. And in fact, I'd love to get the thoughts of the football writer Harry De Cosemo, and he joins me now live on the programme. Good day to you, sir. How are you doing today, Harry?
Hi, Richard. Thank you very much for having me back on. I'm very good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. So, Champions League draw. I saw you were following it pretty closely on Twitter. Are you happy with how the draw went?
Yeah, I think it would have been my choice. I think just partly because I think everyone's bored of Madrid derby final, but also it gives Atletico probably a better chance of defeating Real Madrid over two legs than in one game. I think they'll be happier with that. And as for Juventus Monaco, it's attack versus defence. Another opportunity for Juve to prove that they've got the experience to put aside one of the most exciting teams in Europe. Well, I mean, Monaco with Kylian Mbappe, they'll fear nobody. So it's really exciting to see what happens, and I can't wait.
How good is Mbappe, Harry?
I said it on Twitter. I think it was whenever he scored the goal. I think obviously against Dortmund in the second leg. Um, he's the pinnacle. He's the top level of wonder kid. I mean, the goals he's scoring, the amount of goals, as well as the quality, the pace he's got. I often think that when you're 18, 17, 18, 19 years old, it's quite tough to prove yourself as a youngster that's better than just because a lot of false dawns happen at that age. But the guy looks like the real deal, and but he's not. You've got Tiamu Bakayoko, you've got Djibril Sidibe, Benjamin Mendy, you've got a team, and Bernardo Silva, you've got a team full of quality young players that will have absolutely no fear, but they do come up against probably the best defensive side in Europe right now with so much experience. So I think that is the most interesting tie that could possibly have come out of the draw.
All right, so we do have our poll, Harry. Who do you think is going to win the Champions League right now?
Well, I said at the start of the season, I said Juventus. I said when I was last on this show, I said I fancied one of the smaller teams of, so to speak, outside of the big three, which is Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, and Barcelona. The first time that two of those three haven't been in the semi-finals since 2009. And I've got to say that I still fancy Juventus to go all the way.
Yeah, I think they've really looking good going forward with Dybala and Higuain. Of course, they've got Mandzukic there. Cuadrado's looking like the player Chelsea thought they would have signed, but actually ended up didn't, or maybe that was Mourinho not really taking a shine to him. We'll never really know about that. But let's move on to the Europa League. Let's have a look at how that draw went. Yeah, Ajax face Lyon and Celta Vigo face Manchester United. It looks like Manchester United are really concentrating on this competition now, despite their excellent win last weekend against Chelsea. Harry, you're still here. Do you think United will be happy with that drawing Celta Vigo?
Definitely, I think it's quite a contrast to the Europa League semi-finals, the Europa League in general this year compared to last year. Last year you had a lot of real quality team in the competition till the very end. This year there seems to be a bit of a less, on the face of it anyway, a less quality last four. And Manchester United, despite hobbling through the competition, should undoubtedly be going into this tie against Celta as definite favourites. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. I'd quite like to see a Lyon-Manchester United final, just so Memphis Depay can face his former club. Maybe score one of those wonder goals that we've seen him score for Lyon recently, which he was not really able to do at Old Trafford. So that is the draw for the Europa League. Those games are going to start on May the 4th with the second legs the following week. And it's actually going to be the winner of the Ajax and Lyon game will be considered the home team when the final takes place in Stockholm for the Europa League. All right, let's move on to football happening in England, and it is the FA Cup semi-finals. And very obviously, you hear all the cliches normally about the FA Cup. You hear about the magic of the cup, and you hear about the underdogs, but there aren't any real underdogs this weekend in the semi-finals. Let's have a look at what is going on this weekend. So Saturday's game sees the top two teams in England right now. It's the Premier League leaders Chelsea facing Tottenham Hotspur. And of course it's going to be in the ground where Spurs will be playing regularly next season, Wembley Stadium. It hasn't been a very good place for them in the past year. Of course they got knocked out of the Champions League in the group stages. They got knocked out in their first knockout round of the Europa League. They've only won one game there in the past season. That was against CSKA Moscow. However, Chelsea, they lost to Spurs. They've only had 3 defeats this season, and one of them was against Spurs, and they've had a few illnesses this week. Gary Cahill, Diego Costa, Victor Moses and Marcus Alonso are all doubts through illness. So we'll have to see what happens there. And they won't have their goalkeeper again, Thibaut Courtois, although Asmir Begovic is a very good goalkeeper. Sunday's game, it's Arsenal. They got back on track with a win against Middlesbrough. First time they've won away in quite a while. And they faced Manchester City, who were in very good form in their last match, beating Southampton 3-0. Arsenal look like they're going to be without Mustafi, and Arsenal, though, have got a pretty good record against Manchester City. They've only lost once in their last 6 against Manchester City. So, Harry, you're here. 2 huge games this weekend. Are you excited? Are you looking forward to this?
Yeah, definitely. I think, as you said, no real underdogs. It's not the sort of magic of the cup. I think if you asked a lot of people when it comes to the FA Cup, latter stages certainly, they'd actually rather have bigger clashes because there's less between the two sides. If there was a real sort of gulfing clash between two sides, then it might be a bit different. But yeah, I think both games are really close to call. But I definitely see 2 clear winners out of both ties for me. Certainly, I think actually Spurs will beat Chelsea. Depending on if the tragic news about Ugo Ehiogu affects their preparations for the game. I think Chelsea are coming to the game in such sort of, as you said, with so many illnesses this week of key players, and they've had their forms dipped a lot recently. Teams are beginning to work out how to play them, and the fact that Spurs are so creative with their 2 with Christian Eriksen and Dele Alli, and how they play, I think could really cause Chelsea problems. While Arsenal, I watched them. I was at the Riverside again for the game against Middlesbrough, and they played 3 at the back, and for long periods they didn't actually look that much in control. And if they play 3 at the back again, then it gives Pep Guardiola the license to just allow his wide players to run riot. So I actually see a Tottenham versus Manchester City final for myself.
What do you think of this whole 3 at the back system, Harry? Obviously, it's worked wonders for Chelsea, and a few teams have now started to use it. We've seen Spurs use it on occasions. Arsenal have employed it now. I've seen other teams in the Championship use it on occasion. Is it just... It always feels that one manager will then change a formation and then it'll become very much in vogue. Is this just a current fad?
Yeah, it kind of is, but also there are different variations of it. I think what makes Antonio Conte's version of it so good, for example, is the fact that he's got both creative players in Hazard and Pedro out wide with Willian and Diego Costa up front, feet being fed. But he maintains the basic defensive structure with N'Golo Kante and Nemanja Matic in centre midfield. So he still has both defensive strength and attacking sort of potency. While as Tottenham and quite a few teams like to use it's a way of bringing in 2 creative players, as I alluded to with Eriksen and Ali, in behind one defensive midfielder. So it really makes it quite an interesting sort of matchup particularly Spurs against Chelsea, as I mentioned, because it's the two different variations of the three at the back wing back formation. It's really interesting to see how it turns out.
We'll have to wait and see what happens this weekend. Harry, it's good to get your thoughts so far. Harry, stay there, don't go anywhere. Of course, Harry, not mincing his words, giving his strong opinions like a lot of our guests do on Sportuccino. And sometimes, just sometimes, they get a little bit carried away and their tempers flared. Have a little look at this. I think it's an absolutely ridiculous decision.
This Leicester team are in relegation trouble at the moment. Serious problems they've got.
Oh, they're a mess, Scotland.
I just think it's mental from fans to bring firecrackers in the first place. It's not a freaking bonfire night. It's not the 4th of July. Grow up.
Clattenburg is the best referee in the world.
That Tony Bellew nonsense.
I don't blame him for doing what he did. I don't blame him for disobeying team orders.
I think it's madness.
Rooney is the more natural-born leader.
The performance wasn't really good enough from PSG.
Both teams have to win just to kind of get a little bit of pride back.
I don't think Jansen's up to it.
It's the same North London, bottling attitude.
They looked like a side who would concede goals. Now they don't.
Grow up, people. Grow up. Pathetic. Yes, all of those episodes are available at sportuccino.com and, of course, on our YouTube channel. Just search Sportuccino. Pretty easy to find. Now, Harry De Cosemo, the football writer, football expert, is still with us here on Sportuccino. And let's quickly run through what is happening in the English Premier League, because there are still games going on this weekend. Here's a quick run through of what's going on Saturday. 4 matches. It's Bournemouth versus Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough are 19th in the league. They've only had 4 wins all season, but one of them was against Bournemouth. So we'll have to see what happens there. Of course, Bournemouth, they got hammered. I think it was 4-0 last week against Spurs. Not a great performance by them. Hull face Watford. It's Swansea taking on Stoke, and West Ham take on Everton. Any thoughts on any of those games, Harry?
Yeah, I'll be at the KCOM Stadium to watch Hull play Watford, and it's a must-win game for Hull. But Marco Silva's really instilled a genuine belief that they can win every home game, because he's not lost a home game since 2014 in his career personally. So Watford have got very little to play for. Hull have looked particularly good in the second half of games, and they may have to sort of come out and start the game a bit faster this time, which may be a bit more of an issue for them. But I can honestly see them getting the points, and it's a really big that puts the pressure on them on the Swansea, who obviously, as you said, are facing Stoke. So the relegation battle really takes centre stage with the FA Cup taking the Champions League and title race away from it. So yeah, I can't really see much other than a Hull win, but I could be proven wrong, of course.
What has Marcus Silva brought to this Hull side, Harry? What has he done to make this transformation?
It just seems like everything is done to the full detail. He never leaves anything. Much like the likes of Jose Mourinho, who obviously he's a fellow countryman and he's known him before as well, and he's also friends with Andre Villas-Boas, who's very similar. This sort of attention to detail is really what he's brought, there was a sort of acceptance that Hull couldn't stay up before he came in under Mike Phelan, and any result they got was a bonus. Now, if they drop a point at home, it's quite a remarkable turnaround. The last home game that they lost was against Manchester City, and if they drop any points in a home game, I was at the Burnley game a few weeks ago, and the mentality is completely swapped around. And apart from anything else, he's actually made selling the 2 best players in Jake Livermore and Robert Snodgrass in January look like a positive move by bringing in a lot more quality players across the board. Now the squad looks a lot stronger, and the belief is there just off the back of his mentality.
Well, enjoy the game on Saturday. Let's have a little look at what's going on Sunday. It is Burnley against Manchester United. Of course, United going through to the semi-finals of the Europa League this week and beating Chelsea, while Liverpool face Crystal Palace. United seem to have been outside of that top four for most of the season, but do you think they could creep in, or do you think it's going to be a little bit difficult now for them to concentrate on both the Europa League and reaching the top four? Do they need to prioritise, or could they effectively do both, Harry?
I think depends a lot on Zlatan Ibrahimovic's fitness. Obviously, he went down with a serious knee injury last night, so it depends a lot on him. It depends a lot on Marcos Rojo as well, because Smalling's injured and Jones, and Mourinho's coming out and asking them to be a bit braver as he was earlier in the season, because he's so threadbare with his defence. So I find it tough to believe that they will, because Liverpool don't look like slipping that far back. Manchester City have sort of found a bit more of a rhythm to get themselves over the line, and of course they've got Tottenham and Chelsea at the top of the league. I can't see Manchester United personally getting in the top four. I think they'll be battling out with Arsenal for fifth place.
Well, yeah, it could be the first time in a long, long time that Arsenal don't reach the Champions League, don't reach that top four. I'm sure we could discuss Wenger, but we won't. We're going to move to Spain. We're going to talk about one of the biggest games in world football. It's Real Madrid versus Barcelona in El Clasico, Sunday night. I think it's 7:45 British Standard Time, one of the real big games in world football. Harry De Cosemo, Real Madrid versus Barcelona. Which way is it going?
For me, Real Madrid. Barcelona just don't look strong enough in what made them so great for years, which is midfield. And Real Madrid, for the first time in a long time, can actually go into the game and maybe actually try and dictate the tempo. For a long time in the Clásicos, particularly in the sort of Mourinho-Guardiola era, where this sort of real interest worldwide in this fixture. It's always been a massive fixture, but it's sort of taken on a new level since those days. And it was always that Mourinho had to, and Real Madrid, and since have had to sort of play on the counter-attack against Barcelona, because Barca's midfield was so strong, which it just isn't these days. As you've seen, PSG and Juventus bypass it quite easily in the Champions League, and Real Madrid have more than enough quality to do that. They're in confident mood. They're at home, and I can only see a Real Madrid win. The saving grace for Barcelona is that they now push themselves to go and get the ball forward to the front three. One of which is most likely not going to be playing. There is a slight possibility Neymar could feature despite his ban because of appeal, but it's most likely that Neymar won't be there, and that takes without him they're lacking a third of what makes them great, and I can't see them breaking down this Real Madrid side.
Yeah, I was looking at that Barcelona team which started against Juventus, and player for player, I thought it's absolutely sensational. And I think when they have their strongest 11 out, it's a very good side. Obviously, they faced a very strong and stubborn Juventus team. But I wonder, the real problems at Barcelona is the lack of strength in depth. Is it the fact that if one of those players is not fit, is injured, they've got no one really of good enough quality to back them up?
Yeah, and that's quite a scary thought, considering that Barcelona that was what they focused on last summer. They went and decided that the first team was good enough, and that they needed better quality outside. The likes of Andre Gomes would cost £60 million. Other than Samuel and Titi, they've not really strengthened. They've not really brought in players who can really make a case for getting involved in that starting 11, and that isolates and makes it worse when the likes of Andres Iniesta, who isn't performing to his optimum level and is beginning to unfortunately look a little bit like he might be on the way down. Those performances when he's not there are much more scrutinised, because the likes of Gomez and Arda Turan and this season Ivan Rakitic haven't been able to stand up, and that's a real issue for Barca, I think, and it's really quite. As you said, that is definitely the issue, but that's says quite a lot about the state of affairs at the club that was what they focused on last summer.
Yeah, and of course they will be changing their coach at the end of the season, so we'll wonder if the new coach will have some new ideas, fresh thinking and perspective. Harry, it's been really good to get your thoughts. Been great to speak to you once again on Sportuccino. Thank you so much for your time today. Before you go, let's get a reminder of how we can find you on social media, please.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Harry De Cosemo, so you can follow me and all my articles and everything I do on there.
Superb. Well, enjoy the game against Hull. Harry De Cosemo, football writer, thank you for being on Sportuccino.
Thanks very much. See you later. Bye.
Great to talk to Harry on the programme. All right, we have come towards the end of the show. Let's get a quick reminder of what are the trending stories when it comes to football. Have a look at this. Holders Real Madrid will face neighbours Atletico Madrid in the semi-finals of the Champions League, while Monaco have drawn Juventus. In the Europa League, Manchester United will take on Celta Vigo, while Ajax have been drawn against Lyon. A market trader has been charged with the suspected bombing of the Borussia Dortmund bus. And the former England defender Ugo Ehiogu has died at the age of 44 following a cardiac arrest. So that's it for another Sportuccino. I hope you have a wonderful sporting weekend. Of course, it's Norwich versus Brighton in the Championship tonight. Being a Brighton fan, I was at the celebrations on Monday as they got promoted to the English Premier League, and a win against Norwich tonight means they could be crowned champions. That game is live on Sky as well. Go and check that out. All right, I've been Richard Parr. We have been live on YouTube, Facebook and on Periscope. All of the previous episodes are available at sportuccino.com, so go and check that out. Have a wonderful weekend. I've been Richard Parr, and I'll see you again on Monday from 3 p.m. BST. Goodbye.